All right, we're back, and we'll be taking up item number 19. Why don't we do a brief staff report on this one, just to kind of bring up to speed where we're headed.
So happy to do a presentation, Mayor, or just a brief comments where we're at.
Could you just talk? I don't think we need to talk too much about the appeal, although if you could just real quickly explain for members of the public who are still with us the what the appeal is about. And then the second thing is, I would like you to, though, explain the thought process on the traffic and transferring it away from the housing subcommittee.
Certainly. So tonight's item, we have two resolutions. One resolution is approving an appeal to SCAG's distribution of the RENA numbers. And so just to recall, City of Newport Beach's RENA numbers, which are the housing units, is 4,834 units now. And half of that needs to be affordable. So we have some concerns with that high RENA number, and we've drafted probably a 32-page letter here. Jaime Murillo is our senior principal planner. He's did a lot of this legwork. And we're going about it on the appeal for three different reasons. One, we're site constraint. You know, we have a coastal zone, we have fire zones, we have flood zones, we have the airport. We did the analysis, and if I can just show everybody on the screen, if you could launch the number 19, only 45% of our city is actually going to be developable. And I'll put that one picture up on the screen because I think it just tells a really good story of why we're constrained. And you can see that right here, right? All these little reds and greens and blues, flood zones and sea level rise. Only 45% of the city is not impacted. We are site constrained, right? That is an issue for us. We're different than other agencies. That red over there, that's the severe fire hazard zone. That is going to change. We've already seen a draft of what CAL FIRE is looking to do. That's going to expand. So even that percentage of 45 is going to go down even further. Another component of our appeal is the methodology. We don't agree with the methodology that they've used. They are ignoring a lot of factors for the city. And the third point of all this is that now we're in COVID. COVID has changed everything, the way we look at housing, the way we look at density. That for us is also a major issue. So we've drafted a letter for the mayor's signature. It is a resolution for the city council to consider. It is resolution number 92. There was an amendment to that letter. We've provided that as a memo yesterday that went out to you. We did add a paragraph that came from Chair Larry Tucker, who's chairing our housing committee. So that's a quick summary of our appeal letter. This goes to SCAG. There is going to be a timeline here. So we got to turn our letter in, our appeal, by October 26. We get to comment on other appeals in the next 45 days. And then after that, SCAG has hearings for 30 days. In January of 2021, they'll have a proposed final RENA, and then a proposed final, and then an actual final in February. And that's the time schedule. So we want to change our RENA number from the 4,834 down to something lower. So next I'm going to talk about the next resolution, which is resolution number 93. So
before
yes.
You go there, I just want to give a quick update to council members also. One of the things that I've been doing a little bit is working with mayors in other cities, as well as our SCAG rep, Peggy Wong, who is a council member up in Yorba Linda. Peggy had asked for mayors to sign on to a letter asking SCAG to reform their litigation committee. The thought process there is that if HCD is unwilling to consider the recent discussions that have come out showing that it's unlikely that the 1.3 million figure is accurate, that SCAG at least form the litigation committee to consider filing litigation against HCD to reduce that 1.3 million. If the 1.3 million number is reduced, of course, they'd be able to reduce it across the entire SCAG region, including Newport Beach. So that three part process that we've been trying to go down, challenge legally, challenge politically, and then challenge, then find compliance. I do want to just point out this is obviously challenging legally, but this is the city approach. There are regional bodies that Newport Beach is having some effect on as well to try to bring down the number region wide, which would help us as well. So I wanted to at least point that out. And SCAG did actually reform the litigation committee. So the big time fingers crossed is that we'll be able to do that. The other thing worth pointing out is we're also going to be asking. Peggy has agreed and uses Newport Beach actually as the example to try to get a SCAG to carry legislation to essentially give units to so let's take Banning Ranch, for example, because that's the example that gets used a lot, actually. So you have Banning Ranch where a council approves a certain number of units, a different government agency says no. The Peggy is going to be trying to get SCAG to bring forward legislation that would recognize those housing units toward the city's RENA number, even if it's denied by a separate agency. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. There's no guarantee any of it works, but we're trying. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. Let's go into the traffic circulation issue.
Thank you, Mayor O'Neill. So the next resolution is resolution number 93. So the housing committee is really busy focusing on housing and sites, looking at the sites. They've looked at a lot of properties in the airport area. We've had 4 different meetings. They've formed 5, and I say it 5 subcommittees from the housing committee, and there are 10 members to that housing committee. They're working hard. We're a little delayed because of COVID, but we're working strong. They're going to be busy all of 2021. We're focusing on the housing element. It's going to take a lot of work. I have 3 staff planners here tonight because there's so much work involved on the housing side. The chair of the committee believes that they are occupied on the housing element. They don't have the bandwidth right now to focus on the circulation element. There's work to be done on the circulation element now. Once the housing committee finalizes their site locations for additional housing, that will get plugged into the circulation element. But there is work to be done now on the circulation element. Housing doesn't want to work on the circulation element right now. From a staff recommendation, we'd like to move the circulation element update to the Planning Commission. They have authority already granted to them by the city's charter. Everything regarding the general plan always flows through the Planning Commission. That is in their charter. They're established. It's a venue for public dialogue, for public input. We can bring in experts. We can form subcommittees. It's ready to go. So resolution number 93 takes just the circulation element update away from the housing committee. And it really recognizes the Planning Commission to do the circulation element. Again, it's just a body for ideas can be discussed. They're only going to make a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council has the final say with any general plan element, whether it's housing element, whether it's transportation. All the elements eventually come to the City Council for final review. But it is a established commission that we can work through already and start working on the circulation element update. And that covers the 2 resolutions.
All right, why don't you stay up here, Ms. Brenner?
Simone, I watched the Planning Commission meeting when this was proposed to them, and Eric kept trying to get someone to step up to be the planning commissioner that kind of takes the lead on this, and nobody was interested in doing that. Has that changed since that meeting occurred?
So it is, thank you, Councilmember Brenner. It is really being part of an outreach committee. We recommended that a commissioner be part of the outreach just for oversight over staff and the consultants, so we're doing everything right. We have spoken to a couple commissioners. They have interest. Everybody's saying, well, if no one else steps up, we'll step up. And everybody's kind of taking that approach of let's see who really wants to do it. We do know of two that will do it. The chair, Eric Wagan, said if no one steps up, he'll do it. So we do have members that will do it. If clearly, there's not a sense of urgency. No one rushed to
That
jump
kind
up to
of
be part of the
speaks
outreach.
to my concern about this, because we appointed planning commissioners that are dealing with housing and development and that sort of thing. We didn't appoint them really with the circulation element in mind, and it seems like this is a passion of mine, and I'd like to see somebody, I don't know whether it's within the planning commission or someplace else, but I'd like to see somebody dealing with our circulation element that is really passionate about finding solutions and coming up with creative ideas that, how are we going to make this traffic problem better in our city, especially if we build 5,000 more units.
True.
So I'm really concerned about this, and I'm not feeling confident that this is the way to go, but I don't have any suggestions on how to do it another way either. So I think that's all part of kind of my concern about our general plan update committee being disbanded, because I think probably there were people on that committee that were passionate about circulation and traffic. And I know now, is Tony Petros, is his firm engaged as a consultant for us?
Yes,
Or-
he's with LSA, so they're on contract too.
So we do have Tony that certainly is interested, but I don't know, personally, I'm not feeling confident that this is where we want this to be, because I really want people that are engaged and really interested in finding new ideas.
I think I look at it also as that it's the Planning Commission is a platform where ideas can be shared. So the commission can always form subcommittees. They could always have, through a Brown Act process, have people engage with the subcommittees to work through those issues. I think there's a lot of different ways we can do this. We can bring the expertise to the commission. We can bring the people in the community to the commission and work with our chair to form subcommittees.
Could they have like an ad hoc committee such as we have? I know you've mentioned to me, or maybe Dave mentioned to me, that there is someone in Corona Del Mar that is either retired or something, but he is like a city planner or a traffic person that lives in Corona Del Mar. And I would like to see us reach out into the community and get people who really are passionate about this to work on this particular problem.
And the commission has the authority to form ad hoc committees, and they can form ad hoc committees with residents, and it'll be subject to Brown Act if we do that. But that's absolutely in their purview to do that. If a resident wants to participate, we need their commitment to participate. As you know, Councilmember Brenner, these are long meetings sometimes, right? And it takes a lot of energy and a lot of work to get through these.
Sorry, I'm just trying to think. Do you mind if I follow up on that for just a second? So Simone had come to me because I'm ex officio on this subcommittee, and had talked to me about this issue, and I'd pushed back on the same concerns actually, which was, how are we, can we do a standalone? Was one of the first questions I had asked Simone. Simone, you want to walk through? I mean, I'll just say, I'm gonna throw this to you in just a second, but I asked the same question: can we do a standalone? He politely reminded me how stretched thin the department is already on a lot of this. And then I also then we started talking about the circulation element in the context, and there's a letter we got. Hang on, let me find it. There's a letter that we got that I wanted to at least make sure I had highlighted from the Orange Coast River Park Conservancy, highlighting, hey, you should be focused also on open space. The answer is, yeah, we should be focused on open space. And guess what we're being told by the state of California? Focus on housing, and then everything else falls into place. And so I remember reading that thinking, yep, I agree with you. Same thing kind of on circulation. It's housing, dictate of housing, and then circulation falls in behind that, and that's the problem. I mean, this is a huge problem with what our housing subcommittee is trying to work through, is where can you even find spaces in Newport Beach? Question mark. Like it's not even where can you find 44 over 4,000 units. It's just where can you actually find more, and it's not exactly easy. And they've been going parcel by parcel up in the airport area. Anyway, it's each element deserves its own review for sure. Unfortunately, we're being dictated that one is it's like the one ring. Like it's that, and then everything falls behind it. Ms. Dixon.
Yes, just to follow up on what Ms. Brenner was talking about, I agree. And staff, clearly we all know, is overloaded here on all of this, RENA and general plan, but you're going to have to staff the planning commission anyway. I mean, it's the same staff going to be planning, so whether it's an ad hoc committee or the planning commission, transportation, I mean, so much is changing in transportation, as we all know, and circulation, and added on top of that, the added additional housing units that may be built, maybe not, but nonetheless we have to plan for 5,000 more. It just seems to me that circulation and driverless cars and all of this, I just don't know what the expertise specifically is amongst planning commissioner members that have this. If we're looking at 21st century transportation circulation matters, that I think we need to get state-of-the-art thinking, and to the extent that we can. So I think citizens should be involved, and granted it's a heavy workload, but we should at least appeal to those who have the skill sets in our community as well as the interest to be part of this process. So I would recommend that we direct, not just leave it up to the planning commission to, if they want, have a committee. We direct, the planning commission can supervise if you feel that that's appropriate and better, but there needs to be a community-centered transportation circulation ad hoc committee to work with the planning commission. But the staff's still going to have to staff that function, right? I mean, that doesn't change. But I'd like to be a little bit more specific in directing the planning commission to reach out to the community to get community involvement for however many members. But to me, I think it sounds like we're just throwing it to planning because everybody's too busy, but it's so fundamental to our future and to the future general plan that I think the citizens will be not well served not to be involved in this process.
I agree. Ms. Brenner, go ahead.
It almost seems like maybe you're adding additional complication to have it go through the planning commission. It seems like it would be simpler for us to just appoint a committee that is focused on circulation, and because doesn't it seem like it's going to be sort of circuitous to involve the planning commission, and then I wonder if you're not going to be saving time if we just appointed a committee that was focused on this.
And thank you, Councilmember Brenner. I think when the subject matter did come up a while ago, I think the concern I have as the department head is having another committee to staff, to man, another night meeting, another agenda to produce, more staff reports to write. Dave doesn't have, I had a conversation with Mr. Webb today, and we talked it through, and we were trying to problem solve what's the best way to tackle this. That he has a lot on their plate too. I think we all do. In reality, we will do whatever the council directs us, Councilmember Brenner. That's what our job is, but we're trying to be efficient with our resources.
Well, since we reinstituted the Traffic Affairs Committee, is there a way to wrap this into that so that it could...
I do think that probably the easiest binary decision is it's either go with staff recommendation, go to the planning commission, or if the council would like to appoint a separate committee. I think for us, trying to do some hybrid approach, I think it complicates things.
Such a critical...
I know.
I mean, it's so critical.
All right, any
Mayor,
other? Oh, no, go ahead, Ms.
oh,
Leung.
I just wanted to add to the discussion a little bit in that I think you have to remember we do have an expert hired in, a consultant with Tony Petros, who fortunately has the actual history of the city as well as the technical expertise, who is going to be preparing a lot of the draft, well, all of the draft really, and together with of our expertise that we have in staff. And then it has to go to the planning commission at some point. So it's not like it's, you know, when you talk about a circuitous route, it would still have to go through planning at some point in time, because planning, as part of their charter, has to go through all of the general plan elements through that. And then the really key critical piece to all of this is what gets developed by the experts gets fully vetted by people in the community. And we have a lot of experts, you're right, you know, in the community, and a lot of interest in that. And they're going to have a full process to vet, kick the tires around this. That's why we have this outreach committee that's already begun, that has many members that were formerly in that general plan update committee, and being a part of this, that's really going to do a full engagement with the community through that. And I really think the Planning Commission is more of a guiding a forum to have all this happen, all the vetting happen through it. And I think to add another layer on top of that, I think is going to come through that without us creating another committee that's Brown Act, that's noticed, and provides that other layer. In the challenge of what we have to do in terms of managing our resources right now, I don't think we're going to lose the community involvement that we need to have the input into that circulation element, so that when it finally comes before council, you're going to have all that vetting done. Through all that, and it's not just upon the Planning Commission on themselves to make their determinations. They have to get the input from others and be a part of that, and get all of that together to come up to council. So I just want to emphasize how important we know the community outreach and vetting of the circulation plan as it goes through is.
May I make a comment?
Yep.
I mean, just to echo Joy's comment, the Planning Commission really doesn't want to do this. I mean, is there anybody on the Planning Commission that has that type of circulation, transportation expertise? They're real estate developer people and a lawyer. Again, I'm just repeating myself. This is really such an important element of our general plan, and that we're kind of just shoehorning it into the Planning Commission. You're still going to have to do Brown Act. You still have a committee. You still have you'll still have to operate as if it's another committee, and the Planning Commission has its workload. I mean, I think it's a good idea to maybe have one or two members of the Planning Commission on this transportation element or circulation element committee. Yes, have two members of the Planning Commission, but to give it to the Planning Commission, they don't even, you're going to have, in my opinion, you're going to have more work because they don't know how to do all of that. To set up the committees and this and monitor that, and they've got their full-time jobs, plus they've got the Planning Commission. There's a lot going on planning. There's a lot of building that's coming. I think we're, again, shoehorning this, and it's going to end up being more inefficient in the long run.
Well, and I'd just like to add that because this is such a critical issue, for us to make this determination based on our limited staff, which I agree we are limited, and you guys do extraordinary work and more than we could possibly really expect of you, but nevertheless, this is an issue that is so fundamentally important to our community that I don't think we should be making the decision based on that. It's like, is this a critical issue to our community? And if so, we find a way to give it the importance that it deserves, because this, you know, as I've said over and over again, if you go around our community, the one issue that is so pervasive everywhere is traffic, and what are we going to do about it? And as the housing element people are coming up with proposals for where they're going to increased density, and as we have projects that come to us down on Mariner's Mile, I mean, we really need to get a handle on this. So I just don't think we should make this determination based on staff time. I don't know how we do it without that, but that shouldn't be our primary concern.
So my response to that is we're always dealing in limited resources. That's inherently what we are doing as we make decisions up here. And so the point that I think Simone's trying to make really aggressively is part of the limited resources is financial. What we are doing is we're spending a lot of money on an expert to tell us and work through the LSA, LSA is going to be working through the process pretty clearly. And what we need a body that's going to see it anyway, which is the Planning Commission. We need them to work through on an outreach basis with the public, which they absolutely will do, to your points. But creating a new subcommittee or a new committee entirely requires a new resolution. It then requires applications. It then requires a review of the applications. It then requires us to vote and create a new committee. That new committee requires new Brown Act meetings. Those new Brown Act meetings require staff time, and the staff time is limited, and they don't have it. We're not dealing in an ideal. I mean, that's unfortunately every vote we've made so far has been dealing in the non-ideal. We just spent a really, really long time in the non-ideal. And so I guess my point is I was initially skeptical too, but again, if our focus is on the housing element because we've been legally obligated to do so, everything else is going to fall into line behind that. And so our staff time is better spent on the thing that we have to do, and then relying on our consultant, and then also, look, if members of the public want to help us out, by all means, help us out. And then work through that ad hoc of the Planning Commission to bring it forward and make recommendations, because we need it. We do need that help, but at this point, we've got to work with the resources we've got, and it's not like we're brimming with cash. No one is right now. So it strikes me that the resources we've got are what we got to deal with, and that's where we need to be moving forward with. But it doesn't mean that we're not prioritizing traffic. It's the opposite. I mean, we're spending a significant amount of money, and we will have created an ad hoc that technically we don't have to do, but we're still doing it. I just think that adding another layer of committee to this process will slow it down in a way that's unnecessary at this point. Anyway, any other questions before we go to public comment? All right, well, let's go to public comment on this. We'll start with the community room.
Mayor O'Neill, members of the council. I wanted to quickly try to comment on this sort of in reverse order. One of the things I found most interesting about the staff report was the last page, actually the last two pages, which are the housing action plan, staff's housing action plan. What I found interesting in it, it's a whole list of tasks. And if you believe that, we're almost to the end. All the tasks are completed except 3, one of which you will be completing tonight with the appeal letter. And I don't have the sense that we're that close to the end, so I'm wondering why new tasks are not showing up on the housing action plan. And of ones that have been completed, I'm not quite sure what the resolution of some of those was. For instance, number 16 on the very last page addresses questions that you, the council, asked of the staff. One of them, how many housing projects were denied by the Coastal Commission in the last 5 years? Sounds like the only one staff could come up with was Banning Ranch. What are other cities doing? I still don't know the answer to what other cities are doing. As the issue you were just talking about the modification of the Housing Element Update Committee, I think we're going kind of sideways on this. The staff proposal is just to strip out everything referring to the circulation element from the Housing Element Update Committee. I don't quite know how that's possible because you have this contract with Kimley Horn. of which LSA is a subcontractor to that. And under their contract, they're supposed to be getting direction from the Larry Tucker Committee, yet the Larry Tucker Committee no longer has anything to do with the circulation element. So that is confusing. And also just turning things over to the Planning Commission, as I mentioned to the Planning Commission, you're losing a layer of review there. As was mentioned, they review everything that is related to the general plan. But if there's not a citizens committee that prepared something first, and the Planning Commission is the author of the new circulation element, it's a little hard for the author to be also the one making a reasoned recommendation about it. So that's a problem. And I want to remind the city council members are concerned about citizen expertise. On our staff, the expertise about transportation is not in Simone's department, it's in the Public Works Department. That's where the people who know about traffic and circulation are. Those are the ones who refer to and understand the circulation element. So I think you want a citizens committee working on the circulation element in interaction with the housing one. So you have a housing element update, a circulation element update, but it would be the Public Works staff, as with the bicycle committee, that would be the logical one for that. And sorry, the buzzer is up. So as to the appeal letter, my comment on that is I tried to read the appeal letter. It's very long, very densely written, kind of repetitive. If you actually want that to be effective and well read, I think it needs a lot of editing. Unfortunately, and strangely, the letter is already posted on the city website, even though you've not approved it yet, as our final letter going to SCAG. But I do not think it's ready to go to them. It really needs some review and editing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers in the community room? Any callers? All right, how many? Okay. Hi, go ahead.
Good evening. This is Huayan Yep. So I heard all these different scenarios you mentioned, and I don't have a suggestion. But probably I would just say we should start looking for residents who really want to contribute to the circulation element. It probably will take time to find good people who are devoted to this cause. So while we're looking for people, we can figure out if we want a real committee or subcommittee. So on subcommittee, I just want to remind you that the Water Quality Committee is really good at using subcommittee, and I am a subcommittee member. So let's get some people in first. Thank you. Bye.
All right, any other callers? All right, let's bring it back. It's probably worth remembering to Hoyan's point. We did open up an application process to the subcommittee on the housing element at the time when we had circulation element and received 0 applications from people who wanted to be involved in the circulation portion of that housing element subcommittee. I mean, it's not exactly like it's a specialty out there in the community where we're going to get a bunch of applications for this specific expertise. Because frankly, the person we would probably look to anyway is the person we hired. So that's sort of there is something to be said about that. To Jim's point, it's a good one about traffic engineering expertise being found in Mr. Webb's department. Would you be including some of the traffic engineers with our ad hoc at the Planning Commission?
Oh, absolutely. They're ingrained with everything we do. We always work with the transportation team for Public Works.
Okay.
We do everything together.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. All right. Okay. Let's bring it back. On this appeal, this probably will not be bound in a leather volume and being on everybody's bookshelf, although I think it actually is pretty well written. So I'm not gonna, I do appreciate the effort that went into this. Clearly, there is a lot of effort that went into this. And if our residents would like to have a pretty good understanding of why we're so frustrated by this, this is a pretty good document to show. And it's a really good document to explain because, I mean, when you see that map and you realize how much is already covered by different agencies telling us thou shalt not build, it puts into stark relief what we're up against, what we're dealing with. And although I question whether this will work, just not because of the effectiveness of the letter. I think you could have been Tolstoy, and they would have the same effect because everyone's going to be appealing on this, and we know that. But the point is that I think this helps. This really helped crystallize the the challenges we're going to face anyway. And anyway, so I just want to say thanks for the effort on this one. There's a lot. I know how much effort went into this, so I just want to say thank you for all the effort that went into this. And then the traffic one, there's not a good, perfect solution on this, and it's frustrating, and this whole process is frustrating, and it's just like one more layer of frustrating. With that, I'm going to make perhaps just a frustrating motion of I'm going to move to approve staff recommendation at this time. Seconded by Mr. Muldoon. Any further discussion on this? All right, let's go ahead and vote.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
All right, we'll move into the last item, which is COVID update.
Short and sweet.
10-4. This is going to be very short. I think what I have just a brief update is just on where we are in terms of the reopen the California state government's blueprint for reopening. And as you know, we've been in the red tier. We've been in the red tier now the 6th week that we are in. And the statistics come out, the metrics come out every Tuesday, which is helpful for being before the council meeting. So we still are solidly in that red tier. That additional layer that I think most have heard about now is this health equity metric now. That is another number that we have to look at and for the county to meet. And it really goes into looking at where the high positivity is happening in the lower income type areas where we do see that discrepancy. So they're wanting to see that number being brought down. So as of this point, with that 6.5% health equity metric that we're in, that needs to come down a full percentage point. I want down to 5.3. So that's a pretty significant adjustment. I think the county has been doing quite a bit of work. There's a for Latino health initiative. So there's a big focus point in the areas that are in this high area numbers of positivity that are coming on and bringing that number down. But it's going to take some time. I think overall we're seeing movement happening. The number of positive cases, that 4.6 is a good trend from the last week. I think it was at 5.2, so to come down to 4.6 is good, but it's all incremental right now, so I think that's the challenge. So I'm not hearing of the county moving into the next to the orange tier anytime soon, I think is a general message on that. Here's just a little information on that health equity metric that is really focused on looking at where in disadvantaged neighborhoods, what the rates are, and bringing the gap closer down with other areas in the community, which, is really challenging. You think about how large Orange County is and the different demographics across that county. On our side, with our numbers, being in a fairly good place, we've continued to have reopenings while maintaining all the appropriate measures in place. So library continues to be open at the main library. That's been well received and doing well. Our city hall opened last week, so we'll continue that. So with our planning and permitting counters in particular now, it's all being brought into City Hall. And the senior center, our facility, fitness center just opened up starting yesterday with appropriate measurements in place. So I think these are all good things that we're working on and building upon. While we hopefully have the numbers continue to be on the trend that they are. And then just very briefly, we had gotten the CARES Act money that we really pushed into, focused on our small businesses. And I want to say we have most of the money distributed. We're now into the third round of applications to make sure we get all of it spent in time before the end of the calendar year. I want to say that we have to get it in by. So we keep pushing out that the grant funds as quickly as we can, and it's nice that there's still that the pool to go into. And then there was another tranche of money through CDBG that also is going through a business grant program there. So you can see right here, we've had the application period closed. We got a good number of applications come in. And it's going through its review right now too to hopefully get the grant funds for these out in these next couple of weeks too. So a lot of effort going into getting the grants going out as quickly as we can. And that's it from me. And I don't know if Jeff, do you have anything? Or as I'm shaking my head, no, you don't, right? So we'd be happy to take any questions from council at this point.
Any questions? Hospitalizations, very low, continuing to be very low. Remember, peak mid-July was around 722. Today, I believe they're just around 160. And that, by the way, just quick reminder, includes people who are hospitalized and test positive for COVID. It does not mean that they are hospitalized because of COVID, although I'm guessing the vast majority were. With all of the testing that people are doing, when people come in for to give birth, or they come in through the ER, a lot of people are still testing positive asymptomatically, and so it's just worth noting that those figures. But still, we'd like to see those numbers continuing down. So be safe and be well, everybody. With that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.